It's all of a sudden summer, hot and humid, but it's not too bad when you start the morning in the heat. You can adjust to the heat. If I'll do it later in the day, it's kind of difficult, but that's how we keep our girlish figures. So that said, we're glad you're with us. We're going to be doing a cobalt blue decanter already made, and so I've got the pipe up heated. We'll go and get the color and continue on from there.
Marvelous. Okay, so we'll show you what the decanters look like. Here's a few samples we have on display right here. There's 3 of them there in the aqua, in the purple, and the green colors. So Foster's going to be making one in a dark. He'll be matching it up to size with the stopper that he showed you. So with that stopper already prepared, he's able to fit it and get it to be perfectly into the new decanter. He's picked up the cobalt blue color from the annealer. It's been preheated. He's kind of hiding behind a post over there, but he'll be out. There he is in view. Here he comes. And you can see he's got the blue glass on the end of the blowpipe. Alrighty, so the blue glass was preheated to about 900 degrees, and the pipe was also heated because with the heat, the glass adheres to the metal a lot better. Well, good afternoon, Tommy's Workshop from near Yorkshire. Alrighty, glad to have you with us. I think it's so cool that we've got people from the UK tuning into our broadcast, Foster. It's so nice to have met them.
Absolutely.
All righty, and we've got a few others there who may or may not identify themselves, but welcome aboard nonetheless. So right now, if you just joined us, Foster's is heating a piece of cobalt blue glass on the end of a blowpipe. Good morning, Joanna, another UK resident. Thank you for joining us. So he's heating the glass on the end of the blowpipe, and he's going to make a decanter this morning. Now, this is a little bit like watching paint dry while he melts that glass a little bit. So we'll give you a real quick view of our decanters. So here's 3 of them on display here, and we can do them with a variety of stoppers and whatnot. Foster's already made the stopper for this particular piece. He's got it on the end of the bench over here, just sitting and waiting. And he does that first so that he can gauge the size of the opening on the decanter. So what he'll do right now is take that hot blue glass and roll it on the metal table. We call that a marver. That shapes and chills the glass just a little bit. He'll roll it again on an angle, and now he'll blow and trap a little bit of air in the blowpipe. When he does that, the air goes out into the hot glass. It's got no place to go. It's not going to burst that stainless steel, and it's not going to blow his bony finger off the end of the pipe. So that pressurized air expands into the blue. So now he cools it a little bit. If he were to gather immediately, then the excess heat of the furnace would cause that to collapse. He's even going to let's hang it up here for a minute while he makes a momentary equipment adjustment. And we're talking about on the glory hole, not on himself. Okay, so now that the glass is cooled sufficiently, he'll come to our furnace, which is holding approximately 450 pounds of molten glass at a temperature of about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. He'll gather some glass on the end of the blowing iron, cover up that blue, and bring it back to the bench for further working. People ask every once in a while what our fuel source is. We use propane. We have propane, and there's compressed air that goes into the burner assembly to give us that high heat that's necessary. So now what he's doing is equalizing the temperature a little bit by putting the glass into the glory hole. The glory hole is empty ceramic chamber, and it'll go up to about 2,300 degrees. And in there, he can reheat the glass. So now he's got a nice orange glow. It may look a little yellow to you on the screen. And that indicates he's got heat throughout. He's using a cherry wood cup. We call the tool a block. It's attached to the handle. You may have seen the steam rise from that. The blocks are cut from green wood. They stay in water all the time. This keeps them from cracking. They're made from cherry, which is a fruit wood with a really tight grain. Again, with the compressed air, and we'll watch the bubble expand down here. So we can get a few years of use out of those blocks as long as we keep them in water and don't burn them up. Their purpose is to shape the glass. You can see he's got kind of a bulbous shape on the end, perhaps like a light bulb, or if you're familiar, a Q-tip, something like that. The shape of the glass is very important as we make the piece. It also put a little bit of a skin or a chill on the outside to give them a little more stability. We do have a pipe cooler over here. It's basically a trough of water that we can keep the pipe from getting too warm. Even without that, the stainless steel does not conduct heat so much that it's an issue, but it's nice to be able to cool the pipe toward the head of the pipe where the glass is. That allows us to reach further down the pipe to grab it, and it gives us better leverage and control, especially if we're working larger pieces. Now, this decanter is not going to be tremendously large, but if we start getting into 4 or 5 gathers and getting upwards of 10 pounds of glass on the end of the pipe, it's a lot nicer to be able to hold further down the pipe and get leverage. Foster would like the larger block right now. We have them in graduated sizes, and you'll see that this takes on that round shape now from the block, and the block is specially carved just to get us that shape. We have them in a variety of sizes. It's also chilling the outside surface of the glass, giving it a little stability. Now he's going to use a tool called the jacks. It's a pair of metal blades, and you can see from this angle they're hinged together, and he uses those to make a constriction in the glass. Nobody wants a decanter with a 4.5-foot piece of steel attached, so we make a place to detach it. Later on in the process, we'll intentionally break the glass right there. Foster's going to blow and cap. That's what we call that process again, where he traps a little bit of air. And now he's going to marver the tip of it so it cools off. That's so that it doesn't expand there. He'll get this shaped exactly like he wants, and then what he'll do is drop it into what we call an optic mold right there. So it's a canister with ridges cut in it. When the hot glass is blown in the canister, the glass throws out into the voids, and we get the ridges in the glass. We get the glass very, very hot, drop it into the canister. Then he'll blow after he makes sure it's seated. And when he comes out, he'll show us the result, and there are the ridges in the glass. So we call that an optic mold because it makes optical impressions in the glass. That particular type of mold is not made to shape the finished product. We do have molds like that, but we're not using one right now. Again, he's cooling the tip so the glass does not blow out too much there. The very end of that is now cooler than the middle. So when he blows, the end maintains that conical shape, and the inflation takes up above. Okay? So I mentioned molds. Sometimes we do use molds to make a piece, and it actually pretty much shapes the piece with only a little bit of hand work left to do. Most of our work in this studio is free blown. We just blow and shape with hand tools. Now he's using centrifugal force, or just swinging the iron, and you can see it get longer. Notice he pauses that swing just to take a look. Now when he wants a little more, he can go a little bit more adventuresome and swing it around the world, and now he'll start to blow it out. You can see that it's fishtailing all around. That's because of the heat in it. And that's another reason that he waited before spinning it out. There's a greater deal of heat down in the bottom because of the mass. The upper portion stayed dark blue. That's because the glass was thinner there And the glass up there then cooled off quicker and gave him some stability. Nice thing about this cobalt blue is you can really see where the heat is. There's very little, just the minimum needed up near the pipe, but it's very hot down toward the bottom. This is going to allow him to shape the bottom, and then in a moment he'll flatten it with a wooden paddle. Once he gets that done, the bottom half to 2/3 of the vessel is complete. And then it's time to intentionally break it free of the blowing arm with what we call the transfer. He's going to hand the iron off to Josh. Josh will reheat the glass. Notice he has his eye on Foster to see what's going on down there. Foster is going to gather some glass on the end of an iron, a very little bit of glass, and that's what will form like, let's call it a glue bit to hold to the bottom of the piece. Josh will return to the bench with the piece. Foster shapes the punty, or pontle as it's called, and then he'll attach it to the bottom of the piece. When he brings it over, he'll use a file that's been dipped in water but placed under the pipe right now to guide it to the center. Once he makes that attachment, he'll continue to turn the iron, press down on the file to get it dead center. Then he'll use the file to sweep across the neck where he created the line, tap the iron gently, and the piece will come off. And there it goes. So another successful transfer. That's the breath-holding moment for most glass blowers, making sure that the transfer takes place. All right, so we formed the bottom half to 2/3. It's time to open up the top, and you'll notice that he doesn't have the piece inserted fully into the glory hole except for a few brief seconds, probably every 15 to 20 seconds. If he lets the body of this cool off to less than 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it'll crack. So every once in a while he'll insert the whole piece into the glory hole to keep that warm, but concentrate the heat on the upper portion. Now that part was cold enough to fracture in a controlled manner. It's going to take a little while to reheat so that he can shape it. But once again, with that bright orange glow, you can see where the heat's concentrated. He uses the hinge or the strap of the jacks just to shape it a little bit, get it flattened, and then he'll begin to work on the opening process and getting a nice gentle flare up toward the top of that throat. In a few moments, he's going to start working on fitting, well, right now. Here comes the pre-made stopper, and when he gets the diameter he wants, he can place that in there, and if he needs any adjustment, he will. Now that glass was cold, the stopper, so he's only got a few seconds that he can put it in there without causing damage to either piece, but that's all it takes. And sometimes we'll even put just a little bit of wax on it, but usually it's just one or two times to get the fitting. So it looks like he's heating the top some more. I haven't asked him, but he probably wants to open it or change it just a tad. Again, you can see the bright orange glow. That's indicative of heat. He'll be able to get just the shape he wants on this. And then it will be another fit with the stopper. A real quick motion just to see. And if he should compress it too much, he takes a tool and squeezes it back down. And there we go. Now we have about a minute or so to work the piece before it starts getting cold and stiff. And so if he needs any more adjustment, he'll go back for another reheat. If we linger too long at the bench, we risk the whole body getting too cold, down below 1,000 degrees, or we should probably keep it a little above that. But if it gets too cold, it'll crack, and it can even fall right off the punty. So if he's got another adjustment to make, you see that he flashed it by putting it in the glory hole, and then he'll bring it back to the bench. The bulk of the orange glow is again out at the neck where he needs to work. He's constricting it just a little more by squeezing on the outside. The tool he just used there is very interesting. It's a pair of cardboard tubes instead of metal blades. They steal less heat from the glass and they mark it less. Once he gets the fit he wants, and he's got it. There's the high sign, we're good to go. Now it's going to be another flash in the glory hole to equalize the heat. Here's our cobalt blue decanter. He's going to get the heat evenly distributed through the body. Glass will break off here at the weakest point. He wants to make sure that the joint between the punty and the bottom of the vessel is the weakest point. So by reheating it, he softened the sides a little bit and they'll be less prone to break. He'll use his butter knife to tap around the punty joint. He's not trying to knock it off. Notice it would fall straight to the floor and shatter. But what he will do is put the butter knife down, hand the pipe to Josh, tap the pipe with a hammer handle, and it breaks right free from the weakest spot, which was the punty, and off to the annealer it goes. The annealing is actually the longest process of our work in glass blowing. Once the annealer is shut off at the end of the day, it'll probably take about 8 to 10 hours for that to come back down to room temperature and relieve all the stress in the glass. So thank you, Foster. Another amazing piece.
Well, thank you very much. And who is it who's in the UK, in the Yorkshire area?
Tommy. I think his last name's Dunn. He goes by Tommy the Woodworker on here, and Tommy Dunn when he joins us on Facebook.
Yeah.
And speaking of Facebook, folks, you can join us in just about 10 minutes on Facebook Live. And we'll be doing about a 2-hour demonstration there. We got something really special in store today.
So, thank you very much for being with us. You folks have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you much.
Okay.